YouTube, Twitch, hello, hello, hello. Happy Saturday to you all. Hope you've had a fantastic week, are having a fantastic, relaxing day, and are doing well. As always, if you've got anything to say, just drop it in the chat, and let's go ahead and get this rolling. There's a quote that I've been thinking about for a few weeks now. I thought it would be a good time to talk about it today. And the quote is this: "Don't be afraid to play something over and over. That creates a musical mantra or trance, which is really what a groove is supposed to do." And this was said by the one and only Victor Wooten. And Mr. Victor Wooten is an incredible musician. He's an incredible bass player. And he comes from a incredible musical family as well. I know his brothers are fantastic musicians. But Victor Wooten is somebody that I kind of looked up to for a long time now, because he was a bass player and I've got a background in playing bass. Anyways, I really like this, and I think it applies not only to bass players, but just I think that the concept can be expanded a little bit. And I think the older that we get, the easier it is for us to do something, to play something over and over and be repetitive and be comfortable with that repetition. I think it opens up the door of how can I serve the music as opposed to how can the music serve me. And then in the bigger scheme of things, I think that opens up the mindset of how can we serve others instead of how can others serve me, right? When we're born, it's all about us, because we can't take care of ourselves, so we need other people to serve us. That makes sense. But as we get older, it becomes necessary for us to serve others. And I think that by, having this repetitive mantra can potentially serve the music in a really healthy way. And it's just like any other version of a routine. If it's a mantra, or if it's an intention that you set, maybe before you go to bed, maybe when you wake up, maybe before you play your instrument in front of an audience, whatever you do routinely. I think this is in the same vein as that. It gives us structure, and this structure gives us something to build off of, And once we've got this structure there, once we've got this groove happening to where we couldn't mess up the groove if we tried, it becomes like breathing for us, let's say. Once it becomes like breathing or blinking, it's so natural, then we can start playing with it. Then we can start molding it. Maybe then you change up a note, just one note. Maybe push that note forward. Maybe pull that note backwards in time. See how that affects the groove. Or maybe you change that note to, you raise it up to its next highest scale degree. Or maybe you lower it down to the closest scale degree, and see how that melodic change affects the groove. Or maybe you leave out that note altogether and hear if something else could take up the space that note was occupying. Maybe the groove becomes stronger when you take a piece of it out. These are all things to explore once you've got that groove created. Once you've played something over and over and cannot mess it up. Once it becomes like breathing, like blinking, then you can start to play with those little inflections. I'm going to back up a little bit and say that, you know, when we get this groove going, it gives us a foundation. Just playing the same thing over and over. It gives us a foundation. And it gives a foundation for other people who are playing with us to explore and to branch out. And one of the albums that I almost always think of in this regard is a Jimi Hendrix album called Band of Gypsies. And it was Jimi Hendrix and Buddy Miles, and the bass player's name was Billy Cox. And this was a huge album for my friends and me when we were younger. And I was listening to it at the time, and Billy Cox, the bass player, is just playing the same thing over and over. And I would be like, man, how am I supposed to know that this guy's an amazing bass player if he's just doing the same thing over and over? In my mind, I was thinking that I was a teenager, right? Young teenager, probably. And, eventually it started to dawn on me by him laying down this foundation. It gave Jimi Hendrix and Buddy Miles the opportunity to just completely blast off. That's definitely some of my favorite Hendrix playing that I've ever heard, is that album. And I think Jimi Hendrix had this opportunity to blast off like that because the foundation was there. Billy Cox was laying it down. And like I said, when we've got that foundation there, it frees up other people. It frees up other people to do what they want to do. And you don't have to be a bass player. This concept can be taken to whatever it may be. Obviously style plays a big role in it too. Another really specific memory I have is transcribing this bass player named Paul Chambers. He's a fantastic jazz double bass player, and I was transcribing I think it was So What. It was So What, and that's the first song on a Miles Davis album called Kinda Blue. It's a great album. If you haven't heard it, I would highly recommend listening to it. Anyways, I was really, really struck by how repetitive Paul Chambers' bass lines were. And I was thinking to myself, what the heck, man, this is jazz. It's supposed to be dynamic. It's supposed to be constantly changing. And then I was just like, you know what? He is changing it up. He is changing it up, but very slowly. He's got this bass structure foundation that he's working with, and then he's integrating new ideas inside of the mantra that he's playing. And so, kind of like I was saying earlier, it depends on the genre, but there's a constant balancing act between static, play something over and over, and dynamic, changing what you're doing. And it depends on the genre, and it also depends on who you're playing with, how well you know each other, that sort of thing. And then I started thinking a little bit from an audience perspective. I think the reason that maybe people don't grasp, I'll say jazz, classical probably falls into that. Like old school classical, not like the minimalist stuff that's happening now. I think people can access that pretty easily. I think people have a hard time with that because there's a lot of changing parts. And people like a home base. It's something that they can grab onto. And if there's not something that they can grab onto, it's harder for the average person to listen to music and get drawn into it. Now, I'm not saying that you should make music to appease your audience. Sometimes you should and sometimes you shouldn't. It's situational. But it is something to think about. The last part I wanted to say, the last little thing I wanted to say is that dynamic changing parts are cool, but so are static unchanging parts. And by refusing to change, that in and of itself is a change. So I hope you thought that was cool. Hope you have a great rest of your day. As always, there's some links in the YouTube video and then right below. So click on those and check them out. All right, I will see you all next Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a fantastic week. Stay well, stay healthy, stay peaceful, and I'll see you next time.